NS Atlanta, Georgia over the weekend in dispatching of Matt Ryan for a third consecutive win this week. Stakes get a little higher for Lamar Jackson. Who knows? Maybe Joe Flacco and certainly the Ravens as they take off for Kansas City. This guy is writing books and doing Chiefs Digest and talking sports in Kansas City at 580 Sports Talk. You can find him out on Twitter as well as at Chiefs Digest. He is Matt Derrick. He is Matt Derrick out on Twitter. That's 2 R's, I-C-K. And I hope you're holding everyone barbecue out there in Kansas City this week, Matt. How you doing, man?
Hey, not too bad. How are you doing today?
Well, I bet you are doing pretty good. This is, these are the good days to be the writer and the publisher of Chiefs Digest in the midst of this sort of prosperity and this sort of quarterback. We're in the midst of this very slippery area right now between quarterbacks, and somehow the Chiefs managed to get through that last year.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind for the Chiefs at quarterback, especially over the last, 18 months since they drafted Patrick Mahomes. You had a quarterback that the team was winning with. Alex Smith won games. There was no doubt about it. And, going out and getting a quarterback for this franchise was a big deal because they hadn't drafted a quarterback in the first round since 1983.
Crazy.
And never have no history, really. Going back to Lynn Dawson, you really have to go back to find a quarterback that's had sustained success and was really somebody that this franchise called their own. So, going out and getting Patrick Mahomes and then turning him into the player that he's become, Andy Reid, I think, saw this. I think General Manager Brett Veach saw this, but I don't know if anybody else thought that he could be this good this fast.
Well, I think a lot of people would have said that about Russell Wilson or Colin Kaepernick or even Dak Prescott, even Tom Brady 20 years later, that anybody that's not one of those top 5 guys and doing all the measurables and doing the underwear Olympics out in Indianapolis, if it's anybody else other than those guys that blossoms, I think all of us take some note because it's so hyped at the top, no matter who it is. I guess in the modern era, it's the Goffs and the Wentzes, like it was the Leafs and the Mannings 20 years ago. But, Mahomes comes at this a little differently, and I think the whole organization came at it differently. And the weapons that they have and they built around him, we'll get to Kareem Hunt in a couple of minutes, but certainly where they are right now, a different place than maybe where they were 4 or 5 weeks ago as an offense, as a team, and having given up 84 points the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, the defense is a whole other conversation. That's something to dive into. But this offense, just looking at the entire season, this offense has not been stopped. No one has figured out the riddle of slowing down this group. And they've got some challenges. They played this week, obviously, without Sammy Watkins, without Kareem Hunt. Yet they still scored 40 points. And a lot of people here in Kansas City were watching the game on Sunday and saying, good grief, the offense doesn't look sharp. It doesn't look the same. It looks a little bit off. Maybe the bye week had some rust to it. And they still score 40 points. Patrick Mahomes almost 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and doesn't turn the ball over. That's ridiculous.
Well, it's a dangerous game. No doubt about that. We played the Raiders a couple weeks ago as well. They all become dangerous here down the stretch. And I guess the Chargers and the Chiefs sort of tied together in this in the coming weeks, as are the Ravens who go out to L.A. and play the Chargers after you guys play them on short rest next week. But, wow, what a week. Ravens-Chargers, bang, bang for the Chiefs. That's going to sort of decide whether they get a week off in January or not.
Yeah, this next 10 days really is going to swing the season in a lot of ways. The Chiefs could go in the next 10 days to AFC West champs to being in a wild card spot. It's that big of a swing. They win these next 2 games, and they're in really good shape. They've still got Seattle having to go on the road at the end of the season, week 16. That will be tough. But these next 10 days are the real test, especially for, where this team is, emotionally right now. If they win these 2 games, they're going to be in fantastic shape. They need to win out to get that number 1 seed, so they're still in a good spot for that. But if they stumble at any point against Baltimore and against the Chargers, then suddenly they're in a dogfight for where they're going to end up in a playoff spot.
Matt Derrick is the Kansas City Chiefs beat writer and publisher of Chiefs Digest. You can find that at ChiefsDigest.com, as well as at 580 Sports Talk. He is at Matt Derrick. That's 2 T's, 2 R's, I-C-K, and Patrick Mahomes Showtime. We're already doing books on this? Come on, Matt. What are we doing here?
Hey, like I said, when you haven't drafted a quarterback in 35 years and he becomes that kind of a star, that's what.
Yeah, when your last book was on Len Dawson, I understand.
I was barely alive when Len Dawson was playing quarterback.
Well, he comes to me with Nick Bonacani on Saturday mornings on HBO for a million years. And what a tradition out there, though, right? I mean, that you could write a book about this kid on the back end of the Royals winning. Rock Chalk wins a lot out there. Boy, the Chiefs did a lot of winning through a lot of errors, and Schottenheimer and Montana and all of that, but have never been able to even really get back to the Super Bowl in the modern era at all. After getting there during the Len Dawson era. This is an exciting thing, and I think for Kansas City people, they sort of recognize this for what it is through the Royals, right?
In a lot of ways it is. I mean, the Chiefs had some down moments, here and there. But, really, since Marty Schottenheimer came here in the late 80s, this franchise has had some really good moments. They've had some really good teams that could just never get over the hump. Now they look like they've got a team that can do that, and they've got a coach who can do that. This is the most sustained success that this franchise has had since that, those first four, eras of the Super Bowl era, when they won two of those and won one. They've never won back-to-back AFC West championships until the last two seasons. Now they could have a third. Andy Reid has brought a sustained success to this franchise that, most fans who are alive have never seen before. I mean, even if you lived through the Marty Schottenheimer era, you're doing things you weren't doing then. So it really is. And it's been a pretty charmed few years. I mean, the Royals just struggled for so many years, that 30-year drought between their World Series championships. And the Chiefs, like I said, they had some, bigger highs, than the Royals had. The Royals just seem to have nothing but lows for 30 years. So it's a little bit different in that regard because this team is just hungry in this franchise. The city's just hungry for a Super Bowl because they've gotten so close over the years and just have never been able to break through.
And amidst all of that controversy comes to town last week, Matt. This, I've talked about all of the franchise's indiscretions, whether it's the Redskins last week continuing to do stupid stuff and signing guys who beat their wives and that, through the league and calling Kaepernick and where we are with the knee and the flag and all that stuff. The Ravens have had Ray Rice in the elevator. They lived through the aftermath of all that. They had Ray Lewis in an orange jumpsuit as I looked out my window at the Georgia Terrace Hotel the other night. They had Jamal Lewis in jail. He lives in Atlanta. I mean, they've had things happen. Boy, the Chiefs had, this incredible tragedy in their own parking lot that is unspeakable 5 years later. And yet this Kareem Hunt thing hits in the middle of this incredible period of prosperity for the franchise. Talk about the last week or 10 days and what this represents. And certainly on the field, it's one of their better players, if not one of their catalysts, being taken away from them. But this is an ugly episode, I think, for the league and for them and the attention brought on it, where it feels like nothing's been learned in the aftermath of Ray Rice. And I'm in a city where we all learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been a gut punch, for the franchise, for the fan base, because, as we've been talking about, this has been a charmed season. It's been a magical season with what Patrick Mahomes has done. And the team's sitting right there. They've got control of the AFC West, or AFC. You get a chance to have the number one seed, seem like on cruise control for a Super Bowl appearance. And then you have this, and it's not just the loss of a key player to the team. It's, there's someone that you are a fan of, someone who is your teammate, your brother in that locker room, that these guys now have to, reconcile with what happened. Because what Kareem Hunt told his teammates, what he told team officials, was not what you saw in that videotape. And the videotape was ugly. I mean, there's no way around it. That was something that was hard to watch. And for that franchise, it was hard. They learned about that tape the same way that everybody else did. We were in the locker room literally on Friday when this news started coming out. It was posted 3 minutes after the closed locker room. That the Chiefs had a little bit of an indication that it was coming, so they were kind of scrambling. But they learned about it the exact same way that everybody else did, and it was a real shock to a lot of them, to the players, to management, and.
I don't think the kid handled it real well on Sunday, by the way, right?
And in the interview, I think you're right. I mean, there's I think a general perception that it wasn't handled real well. But this franchise made a pretty bold move. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that still in this era would have, stuck by Kareem Hunt and tried to get through it and see what happens. But this team felt like they were lied to, that they were misled. And Andy Reid talked about it again on Monday and said, hey, we want Kareem Hunt to get help. We want to try and help him. But, it couldn't be here. That could not happen. But we want to try and make sure that he's a productive citizen and that it's going to work out well for him, but he just can't be a member of this team.
He is Matt Derrick. He covers all things Chiefs. He has been happier than we've been around here, but we're happy lately the last 3 weeks. He covers it all for Chiefs Digest out in Kansas City. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at the Lee Tessier team, Baltimore's premier realty team, and the folks I'm trusting to sell my condo right now after 16 years of living down in the city. Go to LeeTessier.com to learn more. I got to know Lee through Leukemia Lymphoma Society and his work as the man of the year, and you all know about my wife's journey there as well. Cole Roofing sponsors our community and charity series. They've been there 99 and 11/12 years. They're about to celebrate 100 years in a few weeks. Don't let it goof on your roof. You need Cole Roofing around. And if you have a charity or community story that you want me to spotlight, toss me a note, nasty@WNST.net. We'll make that happen. We had a great live show last week with Matt Skura from the Ravens. Fantastic center, three-part piece that you can hear out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. All of our live shows and our swabbing Matt Skura brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need the right lender. You need Freedmont Mortgage. You're buying, selling, like myself, thinking about it. Call Freedmont. Check them out. Freedmont.com, and of course the Harrisburg Heat soccer season getting rolling as well. We'll be chatting with Kevin Healy, as well as all members of the Healy family, and Carl Delmont as well, getting you ready for indoor soccer. Getting ready for outdoor football in Kansas City this week with the Chiefs. Let's talk about their defense and what's happened there, Matt, and how Lamar Jackson would look to confound this defense. It's not pretty, man. It's like watching Navy. It's like watching a rugby game. They want to run it. They want to run it some more. They've run it successfully now for 3 weeks. Joe Flacco could be back and a part of this. And the Chiefs' defense looks like this is where it could be vulnerable in keeping Mahomes off the field the way the offense kept Matt Ryan off the field this week down in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be frightened if you're talking about going up a team that likes to run the football and your team ranks 31st in the league in yards allowed per rush. That seems like a recipe for disaster. And that's what the Chiefs are. I mean, and this is a very scary matchup for the Chiefs because if Jackson is back there most of the time, if the entire game, this is a type of quarterback that the Chiefs have had trouble with. I mean, mobile quarterbacks have really, had some great days against Bob Sutton and the Chiefs defense over the last few years. They seem to be very susceptible to it, and a big part of it is the middle of the field. The Chiefs are still trying to figure out, a linebacker group. Their edge rushers, Justin Houston, D Ford are having great seasons, especially Ford as a pass rusher. Justin Houston's still an all-around linebacker. He can get things done. But they've really struggled in the middle of the field, and that goes with the outside linebackers. It goes with the secondary as well. And that's where teams can beat the Chiefs, and you can certainly run the football. Well, look what the Raiders did, on Sunday. They 171 yards, I think they had. Jalen Richard had 95. I mean, you could run through this Chiefs defense, and teams have passed against them as well. So you can't overlook that. But for a team that does look like they want to, primarily, run the football, that's a great recipe for putting up some yards and controlling the clock and keeping the ball away from Patrick Mahomes, which I think is how you have to try and beat this Chiefs football team.
Well, especially on the road, and we saw a lot of that with Matt Ryan not ever getting on the field the third and fourth quarter and trying to get quick 3-and-outs. That would probably be stopping Travis Kelce now, wouldn't it? I mean, you talk about the guys running through the middle of a defense. That's been the Ravens' defense on the bad days, has been a tight end that they don't match up well and other weapons that sort of demand attention. Let's say the Cincinnati Bengals when A.J. Green's been healthy. If you have another person that demands attention, the middle of the field's been trouble for this team.
Well, and that's what obviously the Chiefs offer. I mean, even in a game where they didn't have Sammy Watkins and they didn't have Kareem Hunt, you're still left picking your poison. Are we going to go after Tyreek Hill or are we going to go after Travis Kelce? And the Raiders last week, they went after Tyreek Hill. They took him out of the game. And what happened? Travis Kelce goes for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Those two are just two premier elite players at their position, and it's almost impossible to stop them. And if the Chiefs have Sammy Watkins and you add him to the mix, that's what makes this offense even more powerful. I mean, it's almost an impossibility to take all of those guys out of it. So you do. I mean, I think that the way to beat the Chiefs is obviously one of two ways. Two ways. One way we've seen this season, the Patriots and the Rams showed it. You just have to go out and outscore them. The other way that nobody's quite pulled off yet is you keep the ball away from them and you don't let Patrick Mahomes beat you. And it's obviously, I think, that the path the Ravens can take. And you're right. I mean, I think Matt Ryan's a great example. I mean, that's a great comparison for how you slow down this Chiefs offense.
Well, the two losses they have, I mean, they scored 51 and 40 in losing. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's just nuts. I mean, the first team to ever score 50 points in a game and lose, that's just ridiculous. But you got a defense that can't stop anybody, so that's going to happen. I mean, they are going to give up points. It's just a fact of the reality, and they're at a point in the season where you don't fix that. I mean, the only thing you can possibly do is try to scheme things around what you've got and try and salvage it. But this defense for the Chiefs is what it is, and right now it's been Swiss cheese.
A tall task for the Ravens to go out to the 10-2 Kansas City Chiefs this week for a 1 o'clock matchup. And, of course, they're going to turn it around real quick and play on Thursday night at home against the Chargers. Then we get the Chargers Christmas week. So be a lot of eating and shopping in the AFC West. Matt Derrick covers all things Chiefs for Chiefs Digest out in Kansas City. You can follow him at Matt Derrick as well as at ChiefsDigest.com and 580 Sports Talk out there amidst the Jack Stack ribs and the cheesy corn and all the stuff that I love to eat that I will not be eating this week. Luke's going to be out in Owings Mills. Last thing for you, and I'll talk to Coach Billick a little bit about this as well, because I know he has a close relationship with Andy Reid, but the whole Andy Reid movement from Philadelphia to Kansas City and the Alex Smith era and waiting for this kind of a year and this kind of an opportunity, I think there's a lot of people to pull for Andy Reid around football as well. And, I think of all the teams that wear the black hats in the playoffs, whether it's the Steelers or the Patriots or even the Raiders, who have a large contingent of people that don't like them, it feels like the Chiefs are pretty benign, and Andy Reid has sort of waited his turn to some degree, and it may have even been hard to watch what happened in Philadelphia last year for him and for his crew. But it's felt to me like this might be his time. But to your point, if a rookie quarterback can come in there and run around and somehow beat them at home this week, the defense, it just has to get better if they're going to win a Super Bowl, I would think, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it seems to be unlikely because not really anybody's done it before that has been able to win a Super Bowl with zero defense. I mean, even teams that have had great offenses have always had at least a complementary defense, maybe league average. This defense is well below league average of what it does, and it's really, the problem is that the defense is built on big plays, built on turnovers and sacks and holding teams to field goals. And when they don't do that, they give up a ton of points. Now, if this team gets into a stretch, which you can do in the postseason, if they get into a 3 or 4 game stretch where they're picking up sacks, they're forcing turnovers, maybe Eric Berry comes back and it does make that difference, then maybe that's the switch that turns on. But without a little bit better defense than what they've got, it seems hard that they can go all the way.
Well, we're going to go all the way to Kansas City this week and see what happens, right? The double-digit underdog, no one believes. Chiefs do nothing but win against anybody that's not a Super Bowl contender. A fascinating game, and I think a fascinating time to be reaching the Chiefs with this Kareem Hunt situation, as well as how that defense is playing and how the Ravens offense played this last week. A fascinating matchup for everybody in the league to be watching. We'll be watching you guys on the following Thursday. You'll be watching us on the following Saturday night before Christmas. So plenty of Chiefs and Ravens and Chargers going back and forth, and looks like at least 1 or 2 or hopefully 3 of these teams be playing more into January as well. Matt, I appreciate the visit here in Baltimore, man.
Absolutely, and we may see each other again during the playoffs.
Send cheesy corn. That's all I can say, all right?
All right.
You got it. Matt Derrick joining us here from out in one of my favorite towns, Kansas City. I will not be out in Kansas City this week. I'm working on a little personal development conference here for the next week and weekend, and Luke will be around. Luke will be tweeting about the game. Trust me, I'll be back next week to wreck your holiday. You can find me out on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and anywhere the internet is served, including the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Lots of Terp stuff. We got some baseball stuff getting ready for the winter meetings in Las Vegas. If the Orioles ever hire a manager, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford, Security Boulevard. Dennis Colazzos will be here on Thursday getting you ready for Kansas City. I had him on Monday, and he was all fired up about the victory over the Atlanta Falcons. I had a pretty good time down in Atlanta myself. Always fun when they win. Always fun to be on a 3-game winning streak going into December. Unorthodox, some highs, some lows. I've called it a tightrope walk, a live wire act, the Lamar Jackson show. Mr. Jackson, if you're nasty. I am nasty at WNST.net. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.